I'm Jack Simpson. You're listening to Jazz on the Beach at My FM 91.5.
WMIE FM, Cocoa.
I'll be with you until 10 o'clock this evening with the sounds of jazz. I'd like to remind you that 2 weeks from tonight at the Holiday Inn, that's Sunday, February the 16th, we'll be doing our second annual Jazz Benefit Show for the Brevard Community Food Bank. We did very well last year, collected something like $1,700 and hundreds of cans of food, because the admission price is $5 and a can of food that we turn over to the Brevard Community Food Bank. This year it's at the Holiday Inn in Cocoa Beach, and we have a great lineup. The wonderful Ira Sullivan will be back with Bubba Cobb and Mousy Alexander, Ron Miller, and Bill Allred's trombone-playing son, John Allred, who is a wonderful talent. Bert Francis and the All-Stars, Dennis Walton, Al Stevens, Jerry Cozy, John Fitzgerald, the Jazz Workshop, and a kind of a coup. We've got one of the all-time tenor saxophone stars, Alan Eager, has promised to appear also. That's 2 weeks from tonight at the Holiday Inn for the Brevard Community Food Bank, a jazz benefit show. $5 and a can of food. You can't beat it. Well, last Friday, the 24th of January, it was with deep regret that I read in the Orlando Sentinel, on the obituary page, the following obituary. Former Brevard band director and jazz trombonist R.J. Jerry Dotson, 57 years old, died of a heart attack about 6 a.m. Thursday at Baptist Medical Center in Columbia, South Carolina. Dotson, who moved to Brevard from Tennessee in 1959, was the first band director at Clear Lake Junior High, later known as Clear Lake Middle School, in 1959. He was band director at Cocoa High School from 1970 to 1977, and he spent 1 year as band director at Jefferson Middle School on Merritt Island before he retired. He and his wife Nancy moved to Columbia in 1978. There he continued playing jazz and was an employee of North American Theatrical Photographers. Dotson, former president of the Florida Association of Jazz Educators and a member of the American Association of Band Directors for several years, was involved in several local and state band activities. He was very popular among Brevard students, said Roy Leilman, a very close friend. He was very well regarded, Leilman said. He taught hundreds of young musicians. Dotson is survived by his wife, 3 sons, Woody, Greg, and Tim, and a daughter, Nanette, and 4 grandsons. That was quite a shock to me. I'd known Jerry well in the 70s. I'd worked with him on several concerts, emceed some of the things, and I'd found him to be just a great guy. I mean, not just a wonderful musician and a great music educator, but such a great guy. And he's one of those guys that once you met him, got to know him, well, you'll never forget Jerry Dotson. When I say he was a great music educator, well, this past week I had the opportunity of talking to several of the students who were in Jerry's bands through the years. And I talked to a music educator who worked with him, and a musician, a professional musician, who worked gigs with him after school hours. One of the students, who I won't identify, told me that when he was young, they were living, well, somewhat north of Cocoa, and he desperately wanted to play the saxophone. And he entered the band program, and the music educator at that school said, no, let's try what you really should play. And he said, well, I want to play the saxophone. He said, no, maybe you should try the clarinet first. And the kid said, no, I want to play the saxophone. So the kid went home and talked to his parents and said, I want a saxophone. They bought him a saxophone, and he took it back to school. The band director really wasn't that happy about it, and the kid ended up in 4th chair, and after a while just didn't feel that he was contributing very much, and considered giving up the instrument and forgetting music altogether. Fortunately, his parents at that time moved to Cocoa, and he began a music program at Clear Lake Junior High, where Jerry Dotson was the teacher. Jerry heard him play, I guess, and asked him to, well, he was now in 2nd chair, and he's sitting next to John West, who was later to go on, and actually it's now Dr. John West at some school up in the Carolinas, I believe. And he was quite impressed that he was sitting next to John West, and later Jerry came over to him and said, do you like jazz? And the kid said, yeah, I like jazz, I think. And he said, would you like to stay after school and work out with the Jazz Lab Band? He said, yeah. Well, he's never looked back since then. And I think that is kind of the mark of a music educator who recognizes interest and talent and knows how to develop it, and that was Jerry Dotson. Jerry produced with the band, the Cocoa High School Jazz Lab Band, a record album in May of 1977. It was called Believin' in Jazz, and Jerry certainly did that, and all the kids in the band did too, because of Jerry's inspiration. Well, there was Jerry Dotson doing what he loved to do best, play jazz. And there he was at the 1978 Summits End Jazz Festival, and we've enjoyed his playing so much. I said I enjoyed this segment of the program. Well, I certainly wish it hadn't been necessary, but it was. And I know that so many people like myself are remembering Jerry Dotson with respect and a lot of affection, and he's a guy that we'll never forget.